Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. When the Prime Minister was elected into the office 8 years ago, he stood up and said to New Zealanders, "I expect high standards from my ministers. If they don't meet those standards, then I will set about doing something about that." Well, today in the House, Mr Speaker, we've seen the impact of 8 years of John Key's standards. We have a Minister of the Crown who believes that the fact that he escaped the Crimes Act definition of corruption means that he's doing his job well for New Zealand. That's the standard of John Key's government today. If you avoid actually committing a crime, you're doing a good job. That's how low it's gotten under this government, Mr Speaker. And today's report from the Auditor-General is actually in many ways, because though most of the House will know the Auditor-General is finishing in her role. And towards the end of her report today, she's sending a message to the government. She's talking about transparency. She's saying at the report, "I've had more and more complaints coming about corruption." And she's saying transparency matters. And to the members on the other side of the House, today we heard Bellinger say, "We're best in the world for ease of doing business." Good-o, we've gone up one spot there. We've gone down in Transparency International, Mr Muller. We've gone down under the national government because of the attitude of John Key and his ministers to the way they go about their work. So here's what the Auditor-General had to say about Sky City. When the government's deal with Sky City on the convention centre, a range of deficiencies, did not consider that the evaluation process was transparent or even-handed. Meetings with Sky City and the government were materially different in quality and kind from the government and other parties. It was poorly planned and executed. Their processes fell short of good practice. There was a lack of fairness and credibility of the process. It's a pattern of behaviour, Mr Speaker, because today we have another report that tells us that the government once again has failed the basic standards of government to be fair, to be transparent and to be even-handed. Mr Speaker, there is a different definition of corruption, not the legal definition, but one I think that many New Zealanders would attest to. That corruption is a dishonest action that destroys people's trust. A dishonest action that destroys people's trust. And the dishonest action that is in here lies at the feet of Murray McCully and the cabinet paper that he put up. Because in that cabinet paper, he did not tell the truth to his colleagues, he did not tell the truth to New Zealanders. What he said in that cabinet paper was there was some great legal risk out there. And on page 39, since Mr McCully is very keen for all New Zealanders to read all of the report, page 39 of the Auditor-General's report today said, "We did not find evidence of officials' real analysis of other options. We also did not find evidence of ministers or officials requesting or receiving internal or external legal advice on the extent of a risk of claim of compensation from the Al-Khalaf group." There was no legal problem here. Mr McCully was solving a personal grievance that he thought might do something goodness knows what for New Zealand, because nothing's actually been achieved at the end of the day. Exactly, to facilitate a free trade agreement. A personal grievance to solve a diplomatic problem. And again, as the Auditor-General says in her report, "I was surprised that it was decided to use a contract with a private individual's business interest to resolve a diplomatic issue between governments." Mr Speaker, there are a lot of words to use about this operation by Murray McCully. Secretive, incompetent, cavalier, immoral, irresponsible, dodgy. But Mr Speaker, it's just plain wrong. And this out-of-touch government doesn't understand that $11.5 million is not their money to play with. That money could build 31 state houses. That money could give hundreds of hours of special education support. That money could lift children out of poverty. It's not the government's plaything. Their arrogance that they get to do whatever they want, whether it's a deal with Sky City or a deal with Mr Al-Khalaf, is out of control. John Key told New Zealanders there would be high standards under his ministry, but all we have had is a record of incompetence and corruption, in my words. Maybe it doesn't meet the Crimes Act level of corruption, but I think most New Zealanders will see this dodgy deal for what it is.
David